And there ends the first plenary session of the African Union Assembly of the Heads of State, and it's time for the photo session. And the heads of state, you can see there amongst them Emmerson Mnangagwa, the crocodile of Zimbabwe, and the other heads of state and governments from Africa, following the break that they will be making at this point of lunch, and then proceeding later with a closed-door session. And you are witnessing the presence of the South Sudanese President Salva Kiir, who is the former chairperson of this African community. They are greeted by the Intergovernmental Authority on Development Secretary General, that is Ethiopian Ambassador Gabayehu, and the laughter that they are sharing there amongst the other leaders of the continent, as you can see now, just breaking for lunch after the plenary session of the African Union heads of state and government. Also the presence of the Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud there, and the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who equally made his remarks at the plenary Mandela Hall, where that activity was underway since morning, and the whole host of the other leaders from the continent, including the chairperson of the African Union, outgoing Musa Faki Mahamat, and President William Ruto from Kenya, as well as Uganda's Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, also in this long lineup of leaders who will be taking the photo session before they break for lunch. And the activities that had preceded this photo session was pretty much the significant addresses that were issued by the heads of state and governments, which largely touched on the question of Palestine as well, and the question of India, China, and South Africa, the BRICS aspect. And there you see the presence of also the Senegalese president, one of the youngest leaders in the continent, given that nod by the people of Senegal there, sharing a light conversation with his counterpart for the photo session that's happening now after the conclusion of the plenary. And you can see the list of also other leaders who had largely touched on the importance of Africa's youth as the continent's gold mine, and the need to tap into this to drive the continent's agenda forward. Certainly President William Ruto is part of this team that is ready for the photo session, and also the presence of the Ethiopian Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed, whose country is hosting this as the headquarters of the African Union. And there you go, the presence of Musa Faki Mahamat, also the outgoing chairperson of the African Union. Also on the splits, you can see the watch parties across the continent coming to you live from the counties of Kisumu, as well as in Nairobi along the Aga Khan Walk in Nairobi's Central Business District. Also at the Kondele roundabout in Kisumu County, where Laura Otieno is keeping an eye on the proceedings as people follow the events in Addis Ababa with close attention, and this showing the proximity with which they are following with close attention what's happening there, and following on the address. And that was the promo video which was meant for Raila Odinga when he was officially launched on the 27th of August 2024. And the photo session is going to be up anytime and any moment from now, following the plenary in the first half, and per the breakdown of the program shared by the African Union from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It's going to be a lunch session that will be hosted by Musa Faki Mahamat, who is the outgoing chairperson of the African Union. And then thereafter will be a continuation of the closed-door session for the plenary to embark on the other activities of the day, which will include the election of the chairperson and the deputy chairperson of the African Union Commission. And that will be a chairperson who will come from eastern part of the continent, and the deputy chairperson who will come from the north, and the 6 commissioners will be shared 2 each by a central, southern, and western part of the continent. They are still lining up, waiting for that moment of photo opportunity, one that will significantly end up in the hallways of the African Union for history purposes, and of course that will be for study purposes. And it's given, we'll be talking talking shortly about this and just a summary of what had happened at the plenary session, and just a breakdown of what the leadership of the continent had talked about, and that included Musa Faki Mahamat, the outgoing chairperson of the African Union, and who is there, you can see on your screens. Just also behind him is President William Ruto sharing a light moment with the representations of heads of government and heads of states and governments across the continent. There you go. He has been the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's chief campaigner since his official launch last year at State House in Nairobi, and seems he's leaving nothing to chance, still engaging his peers across the continent. One last word that may perhaps get that much needed vote for his former political rival, and now become, who has now morphed into his political friend, more or less, since offering the political insurance in the aftermath of the Gen Z demonstrations that had dotted the president's administration in June 2024, culminating with a breach of parliament in 2024, in opposition to what they termed as punitive tax proposals that were then contained in the finance bill, which was ever since then withdrawn. And you can see President Tinubu of Nigeria there still in very sharing light moment as well with his peers from the continent, and the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and Zimbabwe's Emerson Mnangagwa, as well as the other leaders who will be getting hold of now at the moment. Back to studio with Gordon, Ahmed, and Professor Maxwell. Gentlemen, a lot has happened, and even before the elections, it seems that the African continent is speaking from a position of not letting its relevance fade away. You have seen, Gordon, still on you, before we went on break, we had discussed this. The question of stability of the world depending on the stability and progress of Africa. That is the Prime Minister Maya Motley. I mean, how important is it for Africa to come of age and be counted on the table of international politics and diplomacy?
Well, up to now, the conversation that has been going on is quite interesting at the plenary, because all is pointing at Africa's importance in the world, in the global affairs. And every speaker is pointing to Africa, telling Africa one thing: you either stand out or you get diminished. You realize that in Mia Motley's speech, she's emphasizing particularly on matters of climate change, on matters of financial architecture within the global system that has disadvantaged Africa in one way or another. At this level, Africa and all the people gathered in Ethiopia have only one thing to take home. We either get it right this time round, or we never get it right. And why must they get it right this time round? Because when we talk of critical minerals, today we have the Critical Minerals Club formed by the big boys, the EUs, the Americans. They will determine what the process of extraction, the prices at the market, whereas they are not the primary owners of these critical minerals. Mm-hmm. So at this time, Africa has reawakened from its slumber. And it is very important to note that at the end of this session, which of course I was a light moment sharing outside here, I was telling colleagues here that, look, there's a possibility of even a consensus before we go to the vote. Yeah, there's a possibility of consensus. In that closed-door meeting, Africa must come out in more united position than ever.
Okay, Ahmed, there is also a general observation here made by our viewers. We had seen a changeover from the president of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Mohamed Ould Sheikh Al Ghazouani, who was handed over to Joao Lourenço of the Republic of Angola. The difference between, just to draw the attention for our viewers, between the African Union Commission and the African Union, I mean, here for an understanding for our viewers as well, to understand the difference.
The novelist, the African-American novelist Zora Neale Hurston said that if you're silent about your pain, they will kill you and you'll enjoy it. And I think that the theme of the African Union today is not far apart from that, because what it says, as the Prime Minister of Barbados, we all admire, absolutely put it on the plate. That the issues that my learned friends have also alluded to are very basic things. I want to suggest a much more maybe nuanced way of looking at how our economics and our politics will work by saying that we should not let the African Union be a talking club. We should not let it be a talking club like, say, for example, the Arab League, because everybody calls the Arab League a talking club. And I think it's much more than that. I think it's just propaganda. It would be propaganda to say that the African Union is also a talking club. It's not. It is the zeitgeist, the very avenue of the spirit of our Pan-Africanist ambitions. In which...
Okay, Ahmed, let me just pause you. We'll expound more on the differences. Allow me to get hold of Seth Olale, who is live for us from the headquarters of the African Union. And Seth is there telling us more about the live pictures you are seeing on your screens.
Where they will be served with refreshments before now going back to the second phase of this particular summit. And just a recap to what happened in the morning session, we saw the introductory remarks of this particular summit by the likes of the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Mohammed. We also had pronouncements from the United Nations Secretary General. We also had some remarks from the representatives from the Palestine state, very, very, very compelling, attributes also from the African Union Commission, the outgoing AUC Chairperson Musa Faki urging the continent to unite in fighting illiteracy and poverty. Musa Faki there also making a very, very passionate appeal towards unity and peace and stability, and especially in warring regions where we've seen security deteriorating through conflicts that have actually escalated, the likes of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sudan. When you go up to the Central Africa region, likes of Chad and Mali, cross over to the ECOWAS, where there was a spate of coup d'etat. So Musa Faki there also urging the African states to embrace technology as a way of also boosting food security in the continent, which he attributes to really having been the key cause of the rising levels of poverty in the continent. And so that was part one agenda of the program. You saw there the adoption of the agenda, the official launch of the African Union theme of the year 2025, and right now that particular morning event culminated in a family. They call it the presidential family photo session. So it's not just an ordinary group photo session, it is the presidential family session. What happens from here? Like I mentioned before, from here they've taken a quick break, 15-20 minutes break. They're going to take some refreshments before heading back to the closed session. This particular session will have two main agendas. First and foremost, the adoption of the agenda and organization of work of the African Union. This will see the tabling of the adoption of the agenda, as well as the highlighting of the organization of work. After this particular session, that's going to take about 1 hour, we're going to go to the most crucial, undoubtedly, session of the afternoon. And this will be the elections and appointments of members of the African Union organs. And this will see the presentation of vision statements and proposed priorities for candidates for the election of the chairperson of the Africa Union Commission. It is at this time where we will see, the program will witness the member states in this particular plenary. The member states of this particular summit will have an opportunity to hear from the candidates vying for the position of the chairperson of the Africa Union Commission, Raila Amolo Odinga from Kenya, Richard Ryamandrato from Madagascar, and Djibouti's Mohamed Yusuf Ali. They will have a brief presentation of their vision statements and proposed priorities, that just like they did during the Mjadala Africa that was held at this particular venue end of last year. So after that particular presentation of their agenda and of their priorities, they're going to go into an election period, and this will be the second phase of the elections and appointment of members of the AUC organ. Remember that we have 6 commissioners who were already elected by the Inter-Ministerial Executive Council of the Africa Union. So what is pending are 2 positions, that of the chairperson of the Africa Union Commission and the deputy chairperson of the Africa Union Commission. What follows next is the election of the chairperson and that of the deputy. After this particular exercise, the election and appointment of the deputy chairperson of the AU Commission and the chair, then the results will be officially announced to all the sitting heads of states and heads of government present here. After that,
all right, Seth Olale there live for us from the Ethiopian capital, Addis, where he is keeping an eye on the flock of personnel present there on your screens at the headquarters of the African Union, where they have just walked out of the plenary session for lunch before the closed-door session begins, and we'll be getting hold of Stephen Leto and Olive Barros as well, who are outside the headquarters, to give us also an assessment of what so far is transpiring there and how crucial the next stage will be. Ahmed, I was still on you. Yes. Given the understanding the line between, of course, the AU, that is where now will be chaired for the next 1 year by Joao Lourenco, yes, and the AUC that will be chaired by whoever becomes the chairperson.
And then the commission,
yes,
which is does the daily secretariat work of the definition or the orders of the assembly. You know, there's the assembly which is the president, and then there's the day-to-day running of the thing, which is done by the the commission. And this is done precisely because they want the states and the presidents to have final say. You know, there's the Peace and Security Council, yeah, which does the necessary military political issues that surround the African Union. And one of the things that is pushing and pulling at the African Union is this idea of regionalism versus unity. And remember, since 1960, there was the Casablanca Group, in which people like Julius Nyerere wanted regional cooperation first before they went into the Union. And then there was the Monrovia Group, which the Casablanca Group, which wanted the Union, and the Monrovia Group, which wanted the regional issue. So I think that the same tensions are inherent in the African Union today. Of course, now, my opinion, that the regional issue is gaining more strength, because once you come in as a region and you negotiate with the other regions, then it is easier. I'll give you an example, a concrete example. In West Africa, the ECOWAS has now become a chicken that doesn't lay any eggs, because the 3 leaders of the Sahel, who are now excluded from coming here, yeah, who have the overwhelming support of the African 1.5 billion people, completely support, for an example, in Burkina Faso.
The coup.
The coup. One of the things that the African Union is out of step with is that most of the presidents who are in that place are not elected in this AU. And you can name it, from Togo, which supports us, Equatorial Guinea. Name each country and you would see that they do not have democratic systems. Now, there's no democratic system in the Sahel, but there is no use to give a democratic system your vote, and then it becomes a tart in the international community. You know what a tart is, of course. So I can't use the other name.
All right.
So I put it to you that tension is still inherent in there.
It's Profile Engage you and Gordon. Crossing over to Jimmy, who is standing by at the Nairobi